For just your average citizen, Floridian citizen, resident of Port St. Lucie, when you come in to Halpatiokee Trails or your kayak on Evans Creek or North Fork or Coral Reef Waterway, you look around and you see, well, there's a lot of trees and there's a lot of water. But to a scientist and to ecologist, this place is bursting with diversity. And it's not something that's easily recognizable until you go along with somebody that can point out what's here. It takes someone with a practiced eye to show it, to reveal the surprises that are here. It's a very, very special place. If I have one thing to say about this area, there's a lot more than meets the eye. It's a surprise. It's an ecological gem. It's a mystery waiting to be discovered. And that's what we're doing here with this film. We want to share with you the beauty of this very special area in Port St. Lucie, Florida. This is known as what we're calling the Halpatiokee Bridge Corridor. There's the North Fork of the St. Lucie River Aquatic Preserve, which includes the Coral Reef Waterway from the west to the east, from Coral Reef Waterway to the North Fork of the St. Lucie River, and here we're at Evans Creek. So this is a secret. The Martin County Native Plant Society called this area an ecological gem back in the late 1990s. And it's such a delight to walk through here with somebody that can name the different plants, name the different birds, the wading.
It's got a lot of live oak trees in it. There's a couple interesting things about the live oak. It's one of the highest producing food plants for migratory bird species. There's a lot of insects that use this tree, and studies have shown that migratory birds get more caterpillars and bugs off of this, so it's really important to migrating songbirds for food source and cover. But it also is a host to these epiphytic plants like this butterfly orchid. You can see it right here. And this is Encyclia tampensis, which is...
We will be going through Halpatiokee Trails. Halpatiokee Trails is just one part of the buffer preserve. It too is incredibly biodiverse, but it's also representative of floodplains. This area has the largest amount of floodplains along the North Fork here, and within those floodplains are wetlands, there's Hogpen Slough, there's other creeks that are very important to habitat support for particular fish species like tarpon and for snook, as well as for a number of different plants. The Army Corps of Engineers has said that this area right here has the most intact, continuous floodplain wetland complex, which is the most pristine amongst this whole area. They heartily suggest that this place be kept intact because of the ecosystem functions it provides.
So these mesic hammocks also filter water, and this entire path, this park, is part of the aquatic buffer preserve that protects the North Fork of the St. Lucie River. And so if you look down at the ground, you'll see it's kind of wet. This is actually a little bit higher than some of the adjoining area, but water gets on here when it rains, and it filters slowly down through the ground. So all of the water that falls on the uplands here eventually works its way down slowly into this creek, and then that creek feeds into the St. Lucie River. But on the way, the water that's in there is really clear and clean, and it's a nursery for all kinds of little baby fish, including some of the fish that end up being our popular sport fish.
This basically is a nursery. This is a nursery for all the larger fishes that you catch on your hook and line. And I wouldn't be surprised that then later in the year, because we captured so many tarpon larvae in the St. Lucie River in the late summer and fall, they go to backwaters like this, that this would be a major habitat for juvenile tarpon, and larval tarpon would come in here, and then as they grow, they go into deeper waters, like they go back into the channel back there. And you might also get the opossum pipefish, a number of the gobies, the big mouth sleeper, all those fishes that we've been talking about that actually are indigenous to this river and the Loxahatchee and the Sebastian River, but are not found anywhere else in the United States as breeding populations. So this particular backwater area would be one of the few remaining backwater areas on the St. Lucie River that would be a habitat for these fish that are very rare and should be listed as rare and endangered species. The fish that hide in here, there are many tropical plant species and the tropical fish species. This is the main creek channel right here, and if I stepped off into that, it'd probably fill my waders up with water. As you see, it has good flow. You can see the water beetles swimming along on the surface. This goes on down into Evans Creek, back down that way. So the larval tarpon would swim up Evans Creek, then swim through this creek and up into these shallows where it would be safe from predation by other fish species. These little fish are no bigger than the end of my little finger, and they're transparent typically when they come in. They have to find a place that's shallow and vegetated like this so they won't be eaten by other fish. All of this fits into an ecosystem to support our fisheries and all these rare fish that we've been talking about. These areas are extremely important as nursery habitat. I can't emphasize that enough. We need the nurseries, or else we won't have the fisheries.
Where we're sitting right here today, and what we're showing to you in this film, are places that will not exist as you see them.
The City of Port St. Lucie demands to put their bridge across Route 1C. It is the most destructive of all the available routes, and in it they're going to take away from us the Halpatiokee Trails, a piece of property bought with land legacy money many years ago. They're going to waste upwards of $40 million for this thing, and it just makes no sense whatsoever why they have been fighting us in court and in public for years about this thing.
This area is incredibly special. Many of the properties along the river were bought to prevent exactly what's about to be perpetrated on this site. It's very special. It has multiple plant communities. It provides a lot of wetlands protection. It was bought as a buffer preserve for the actual North Fork of the St. Lucie. So as the bureau chief,
Bridge is going to come over not too far from this location where we're standing right now, and so they would have to clear around the bridge for the construction, even if it's not right under the bridge. And it would change the hydrology of this creek because you'd have runoff from the pavement of the roads and the banks, and so the water flow is actually clear here. We can see into this water. It's tea-colored because that's the natural tea color of freshwaters in Florida from the tannins. But I would imagine it would become turbid where you couldn't see anything.
As a citizen of Port St. Lucie, I'm not against a bridge across the North Fork. I just don't want it to be in the most expensive and most environmentally damaging location they could put it. And the taking of state park lands while it's being done is even more onerous because it opens the door for many other projects like this around the state to then put state park lands at peril. So as a former employee for 34 years, I spent a large portion of my life protecting these properties. And I think it's incredibly important that the citizens get behind an effort to stop what's going on at this park and to help educate our newer leaders in the DEP that this is not what the public wants nor demands.
When a city grows, oftentimes people will say, well, let's just go through parklands because it's the easiest and cheapest way to go. And there are some people that think that's the case. It may feel like that you're moving faster from point A to point B, but you may be missing out on this very special experience here. There's a Supreme Court ruling called the Overton Park decision that said because it's always cheaper and easier to go through parks, that government should go out of their way to make sure that parklands persist. It's always good for citizens to think, where else could we put the bridge? How else could we create our cities so that we don't have to destroy our special areas like this? Could we go north? Could we go south? Could we get more efficient in our transportation? There's a number of ways to get our transportation needs met without destroying the very thing that a lot of people come here to Florida for. We are able to take great inspiration and courage from the women of Overton Park, which is in Memphis, Tennessee. They fought very hard to save their old growth forest for something very similar to what's happening here. They were told it was a done deal, and they refused to give up. We too refuse to give up in protecting our preserved parklands here. One of the reasons that we're fighting so very hard to protect this area from a bridge coming through is it's not only because this place is absolutely phenomenal, it's because if this happens here, we consider it to be a precedent, and any other preserved parklands in the state of Florida will be up for grabs. Get in touch with your city council representatives, importantly, get in touch with your state elected representatives. Write a letter to the governor and say, do not approve an easement or the environmental resource permit that would allow this bridge construction to happen right through these two preserves. We ask that you join us to protect not only these preserved parklands, but parklands all over the state of Florida. My name is Sherry Aker. I'm president of the Conservation Alliance of St. Lucie County.